The morning after my car accident, I remember realizing I had a choice. I could give up or I could fight for another day. I've always been resilient, maybe even a little stubborn. I've always been the one who pushes the limits. I didn't know what the scar looked like then, but I felt every ounce of pain. And I knew life had changed for me in an instant. I have a picture from the hospital. I don't share it often, but when I look at it, I see a girl who decided she wasn't done. From that day on, I've been living for the day after. God gave me a story and a purpose, one that keeps unfolding, even in the hard parts. I've learned that pain and frustration aren't wasted. They build the story we live tomorrow, as long as we still have a tomorrow. And by God's grace, I do, and I have. So today, I want to sit down with my mom because she lived that moment too, just from a different side of the glass. I want to hear how she experienced those hours, those prayers, those fears, and what it looked like for her to trust God with me when she couldn't fix what was broken. Okay, well, here we are. Hey, Mom.
Hey, how are you doing?
Good. Well, guys, I'm happy to announce that this is my mother, Kate Saxton, and I just want to get into our October 18th story, 2004. It's a big day, and first I have to say, happy anniversary.
I know, right? Well, we can say happy anniversary now.
Yes.
At
Well,
the
it's
time-
your happy anniversary.
Well, that's true.
Maybe not so much for the story, but now it is. So, when you think back to that day, what comes to mind first?
Well, what comes to mind is just how good the Lord has been from that time to now, but at the time, which I'm sure we're going to get into it was a dark day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Kind of emotional.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember what life looked like just before the accident? Because I remember we just moved to Georgia. I was starting at a new school. I was only there for a couple months.
I don't even know if it was months. I think it was a couple weeks.
Well, we moved there in August and then October.
Yeah.
So, what do you feel like life looked like for you? What was your normal?
Well, everything seemed to be going fine. We were excited about being in a new area or a new season of our life and just experiencing the things that Georgia had for us. And, things seemed to be going well.
Yeah.
Until...
You had no idea this story was going to come about.
No.
There was no before thought to this. I mean...
It was just another day. October 18th, another,
anniversary.
Exactly.
That's why I was spending time with you guys.
That's right.
This is also the day the Red Sox were playing the Yankees.
That's right.
In the World Series.
That's right.
Very excited to watch for that. But instead, after we had a day of celebration, my parents got a call from the police officers.
Yeah.
What was that? What went through your mind when you got the call, or Dad got the call, I guess? What happened there?
Because, so I was getting ready to relax and watch the World Series. So I know I was in the shower, and Dad came in and said, Kelly was in an accident. And that's why I was like, oh, she's got my car. And, I was concerned more for my car because that was a new car for me.
Yeah.
And, of course, the police don't tell you how bad things are because they don't want you to be in an accident getting to the hospital. So I, just took my time getting dressed and getting my hair dry and doing whatever I needed to do to get down to the hospital. And we were down there, and that's when they said it was really bad. So just knowing it was really bad and then sitting and waiting before we could see you was hard.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to take a second here and give you some details that we actually don't talk about in the podcast. So my accident was me alone in the car, and I was driving from my parents' home to college at Middle Georgia College. And on the way, it's a lot of backcountry roads, which I wasn't used to necessarily. And at dusk, I wasn't used to it. So there was an armadillo in the road, which I thought was a rock. So I needed to swerve. Granted, I wasn't in a little bit of an SUV, being a Ford Explorer, but at that time, I had no idea what that was. So I just thought I needed to miss it from hitting it dead on. So I swerved and lost control. And that's when I swerved off the road, but then pulled back on the road and flipped the SUV. So that's where the trauma comes from. I flipped the SUV multiple times and hit the road myself. So that is just a little piece of where the trauma came from that I experienced and that me and my mom talk about next. Oh man. What do you remember feeling or not feeling in that moment or on the way to the hospital?
Well, again, we didn't know how bad it was. So, I was thinking my car.
And she had a new Ford Explorer, new to her Ford Explorer that we just moved from Boston to Georgia.
Yeah.
A couple months before.
That's right. And all that thinking about my car went away when we were able to see you. It didn't matter about the car anymore because you took priority over that when I saw that you were damaged.
Yeah.
So that was hard.
Yeah. I remember the stories from you, but I feel like in those moments, gosh, I'm now just thinking about it. I remember hearing, granted, I was in and out of consciousness at this point,
right,
in the hospital, but I remember hearing the doctors, nurses, somebody ask you what your address was, what your phone number was, and we just moved, right? So we were in a new home for maybe 2 weeks. They were still doing the upgrades, the painting and all the things. So I remember even painting on that day, with you guys. But I remember them asking, and my parent, I didn't hear an answer.
Because we didn't know. For one thing, we were probably in shock, but another thing, it was like so new to us.
Mm-hmm. And then I was able to say it. And I don't know what that felt like, because I know you say that I look damaged, which I did. I mean, at that point, for anybody that's listening that doesn't know me, my head was split open. My mom didn't know if my whole head was still there, basically. And as they were asking for the address, I knew the address. I knew the phone number. I knew my birthday. I knew my social security number, which ended up being a huge answer to prayer for showing them that my brain was not as damaged as it could have been, because they really had no idea at that point.
Well, because when we first saw you, there was a flap of skin from your eye peeled all the way back to your ear.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never seen you like that before. So that was a shock. And I think I did go into a little bit of a shock. And I know when I first saw you, I felt faint. I don't know if I fainted completely, but that was the first time in my entire life that I ever felt faint, weak in the knees, basically. And the nurse had to deal with me. But of course, it was shocking to see that, because we had no idea it was that bad. And again, you don't know what's ahead. Your brain is just thinking, okay, where do we go from here? Get her better, get her better.
Yeah. And there's nothing you can do at that point.
No. And I know I've said this before, that there were no amount of Beanie Babies or ice cream or Band-Aids that I could do to help you, to encourage you to get better. It was out of my control completely.
Yeah. So basically from that point, I mean, that was the initial. I was in a smaller hospital, Hawkinsville, and they needed to transfer me to a hospital in Macon.
That's right.
And from that, I know Mom has some experience from the whole hospital, or the transfer. Originally, it was going to be a helicopter, and then it became an ambulance. I remember my ride in the ambulance, and I was screaming, and I remember afterwards how I was gritting my teeth out of pain and just screaming, because I didn't know how to stop the pain in the back of my head. And I'm sure those I just appreciate any emergency service people because they deal with that on the daily.
Yeah.
And they just have such compassion and they are trying to comfort you, even though there's really no comfort when you have no idea what's going on.
Right, right. And I know that the doctors or whoever it was told us, we're going to Macon, the hospital in Macon, and don't try to keep up with the ambulance. Well, we had no idea where we were. We'd only
New to the area.
New to the area.
Probably never been.
And at that point, I don't even know if we knew how to use GPS. We didn't know where we were going. So we just kept the ambulance in our sight, and who knows how fast we were going. We didn't want to look at our speedometer, just go. And then, of course, the ambulance pulled into the emergency, and we got parked. And then again, it was more waiting. Because at that point you were stable, but now they had to try to put you together a little bit, I guess. I'm not really sure, but I know it went late into the night before we even saw a doctor to tell us, if she makes it through the night.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, what? Makes it through the night? And that was a shock that he said, well, we're just not sure that she's going to make it. And, it's just, I don't remember crying out to the Lord like, God, you have to. It's just like, and I don't want it to sound like it's flippant, like, well, whatever. But it was, I think, just
a shock.
A shock, but also, okay, Lord, whatever. I know we'll get through it.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that you and Dad were sending emails or making phone calls at that point, because I do remember hearing from a lot of people after the fact that they were praying for me. And I appreciated that. I appreciate that now. I guess at the time it was probably more flippant for me that I was just like, okay, like, great. Thankful for that. But like, wow, I guess I could say now that I was angry at that time when people were telling me that, like I was in that season. But do you remember what you were feeling in the hospital when you were waiting?
Well, I'm sure we were in almost a constant state of just praying, even though we were going through the motions of sitting and pacing and waiting and not knowing what was going on. And of course, I don't remember the prayers, but I'm pretty sure that Dad and I were just either praying together or praying separately, just that the Lord would help you, encourage you to get better, or whatever was needed. Give guidance to the doctors, yes.
Yeah.
And so that was a long night, because it went way into the...
Yeah. Well, I mean, that hospital stay was long compared to anything that we'd ever experienced. Yes. I think I was only there for a week the first time.
You were there for a week. But the beginning of the week, it was still touch and go every day.
Yeah. And I talk about that a lot, that it's the first 3 days that it was uncertain for my parents if I was going to be there the next day. And I guess on the third day is when I got a blood transfusion.
That's right.
And when things started changing.
Yeah. And I'm thankful for that. Of course, again, that was something else that was kind of thrown at us. Nobody's ever said, well, what would you do in the situation if somebody needed a blood transfusion? What would you do?
Yeah.
No.
You have no idea.
We didn't even, that never even crossed our mind, and now all of a sudden it was asked of us or told us that we needed to give the okay for you to have a blood transfusion.
Yeah. Because it was certain at that point. If I didn't have that, I was not going to make it.
You were not going to get better, because the numbers kept going down, or the whatever, all every day.
Yeah.
It wasn't going in the right direction.
Yeah.
And then as soon after the blood transfusion, it started to pick up. It was almost like a wilted plant when you pour water on it, and it just kind of comes right back to life.
That's why I love plants so much. Yeah, I think the hospital stay, I obviously was on a lot of pain medication, on a lot of drugs. I do remember being woken up a lot just to have extra vitals taken and things like that. But I remember my night nurses the most. They were my favorite. I mean, I would say every nurse there, everyone that is involved with this whole process of healing, is important and vital. but I do remember not feeling as comfortable with some as others. And I just remember my night nurses being phenomenal. I remember one of them, I just wanted a banana. I wanted a banana in the middle of the night. And she went into her own lunch and brought me a banana.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
And then there was another night nurse that just would sit with me. And I think she read me a story or something.
Oh, see, I didn't know that.
Yeah, there were night nurses that were just incredible. So I'm really thankful for them. I mean, I'm also thankful for my doctor.
Yes.
We love Dr. Duke in Macon, Georgia.
That's right.
He is the reason that my healing is the way that it is. I mean, I'm so thankful for his hand in all of this. And I know that that was a prayer, but it was probably prayed after the fact. Just having him be my doctor. I mean, finding out later that his specialties were plastic surgery when he was in school. I mean, that was a whole reason.
Yeah.
I remember like just my concerns and things like that with the healing. So what was your thought when you brought me home from the hospital the first time? The second time?
Yeah. Well, there was a lot going on because the first time you still weren't fully cleaned up from the accident because you couldn't get the stitches in your head wet. So, you know,
oh yeah,
you know, you had hair down to your waist. So just, it was all matted from laying in a bed, from being in an accident, from having blood in there. I don't want to get too gory, but you didn't want to get it cut. And I guess I can understand that. You know,
that's a smell that I can still remember.
Really?
For sure. I remember the smell of the blood that was in my hair. And I think that's why I wanted to wash it out so much. But it really, you're right, we couldn't.
Yeah.
And that went a long time, it felt like.
Well, I'm sure it was a full week or more because those stitches had to heal because you couldn't get them wet. So we were trying to comb your hair with that blood in there. So we would take tiny little sections and kind of pull the hairs apart. Yeah. You know, so that was, but it was something we did together.
I know. I mean, truly, my mom was there for me the whole time. I remember her being in the hospital, even though I was sleeping a lot. I don't know what that was like for you, just sitting there, just watching me be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was kind of before, I don't want to say it was before Facebook, but before I got on, you know, the internet.
Sure.
You're right. There's not a whole lot to do but sit and wait and pray and I don't
just be present.
Yeah, just be present. I think that was the thing. I got to know my way around the hospital, you know, and just to make sure that, you know, you were taken care of, that you had what you needed, because the nurses are, like you say, are phenomenal and we appreciate, but they also, you are not their only patient.
Yes.
So, you know, there were times where your pain meds were coming to the end where you needed more, you know, and I would have to go hunting them down, you know, and like, take care of my daughter.
Yeah.
and I hated to be that mom, but I also wanted to be that mom for my daughter.
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, I don't even know that we've had this conversation, but even like that third day, I remember having the conversation with the Lord of like, if I'm coming home, I just want to be forgiven for all the things. But if I'm not, I will fully live for you. So that, I feel like, I wonder if you've noticed that in my life since that time.
For sure. You know, and, you know, I know that was a turning point for you. Just, and even though we always felt like, you know, you were a good girl, basically, you know, but you weren't living for the Lord. You know, like you are now. And I think that was a turning point. And I'm glad that you had the upbringing that we could give you as far as, I don't want to call it spirituality, but just the presence of the Lord in our home.
Yeah.
You know, however that was or looks like, you know, there was always Bibles and Bible reading and devotional times and stuff like that. And I don't really think that I don't want to say took hold, but meant anything to you until the accident. And so, like I said in the beginning, thank you for your anniversary, because it's my wedding anniversary, October 18th. But the further we get, we can really truly thank the Lord for how he has worked in our lives and in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. And now that I'm even thinking about this, like, do you remember calling my best friend Debbie?
I do. And because she kept calling, because you would call her or you
Yeah.
would communicate
Yeah.
with her each day.
Yeah.
Because, you were away from
Yeah.
her.
We just moved and
Right.
I left my best friend back up in Boston.
Right. And so when she wasn't able to get in touch with you, and I could see on your phone, I knew her number.
Sure.
I knew she was calling, and I didn't know what to say.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know, because especially those first 3 days,
You didn't know. Sure.
what was happening. And finally, I think she left messages, and I don't know if I was able to hear them, but I know she was I think maybe she might have even called me and said that she was really scared because she couldn't get in touch with you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I told her, and I just mentioned or laid out the whole situation, of what was going on, and that you were unable. It's not that you didn't want to, you were unable to really talk to her.
Yeah.
Because you were in and out of consciousness.
Right.
Like,
right. And at that point, I mean, my mentality was really just, I'm in pain. I know I have to just recover. And I was in that hospital bed.
Yeah.
I remember having visitors, and I remember having some little people come visit. And do you remember what they said about me afterwards? I do. I remember some of the little kids that would come visit me, they told me later. I mean, granted, this was probably months after. They said I looked like a monster. And that was just like, it's so sad, but like, little kids are honest.
They are honest, and they had no idea what the accident did.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it was sweet that they would come visit, and and everybody was so supportive. But I was still in that hospital bed not knowing what I looked like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Until the first time I was able to go to the bathroom and the nurses got me up to go. I remember looking at myself in the mirror, and I was shocked. That was scary. But what do you feel like? Has our relationship changed since the accident?
Well, of course, I don't know what it would have been like if there hadn't been an accident.
Mm-hmm.
But you're my little girl.
I know.
And we have that connection now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thankful for the Lord, to the Lord for all that has happened and how He has brought you. And I was going to save this to the end, and I don't know how close we are to the end, but I'm so very proud of you for the woman that you've become, and I'm thankful to the Lord that I hate what had happened.
Yeah.
But
I think it had to happen.
I was going to say, but sometimes things like that have to happen in order for, somebody to wake up or whatever.
Yeah. For sure. But I do remember heading home, obviously. We kind of talked about that and what that was like. I was only there for a week until we had to go back and have another test done, and have the doctor check me and make sure everything was working out well. I remember that first whole week. It just, obviously, you're home and trying to heal still on lots of pain medication.
Mm-hmm.
And that is really when I remember standing in the bathroom. And our house was longer, so I don't even know if my mom heard this, but I remember sobbing on my bed after looking at myself and knowing I would never be the same because my face was half paralyzed.
That's right. It was still paralyzed at that point.
And I didn't know that. I didn't know that when I left the hospital, that my face was paralyzed until I was looking at and I couldn't move anything. Like I no matter what I tried, I could only move one side of my face. And I knew my hearing was different. And I knew everything was just so weird. And I remember just being so angry with the Lord. I was so mad. Like, why would you do this to me? Little did I know how much was going to come out of it. But I remember that the first look was terrifying. And I honestly don't even remember when I was able to talk to Debbie for the first time after that. But I do remember when she came and visited.
That's right. I'm
She came
thankful
in,
for that
yeah,
because that helped you as well. 'Cause, I mean,
hugely.
I could do a lot, and I tried to encourage you and tried to say the Lord is going to get us through this.
Yeah.
But where you were, it was like you couldn't see that. You couldn't see past.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I really could see past it. It was just I knew from my life and the Lord just taking little steps and believing and trusting and
Yeah.
that it was going to be all right. I didn't see how,
Yeah.
but it was going to be all right. But to
Yeah.
encourage you, because I don't know that this was really the first big test, if you want to call it a test,
Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
that you had to trust the Lord. And I don't know if you were ready to do that yet.
Yeah. And I think, well, so I'm bouncing around a little bit, but after that first week, I had to go back for my doctor's appointment. I will say a tuning fork has changed its meaning for me hugely.
Well, we laugh about it now.
Yes, for sure. The tuning fork was always used because my doctor would hit it and then put it in the middle of my forehead to see where I could hear.
Right.
Basically.
If it was like,
yeah, which side.
Yeah.
And if I was still affected or if maybe I was getting my hearing back or what was happening, that led to a whole nother surgery or whatnot. But after that first week, I basically went back and visited him. And I think pretty immediately he said, "You're going back to the hospital."
Yeah. We didn't even go home from that visit.
Yeah.
You went straight to the ICU, basically. They put you in ICU because they had to prep you to immediately open you up again.
Yeah.
And I don't really know. I don't know if it was ever explained to me.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was infection, because it wasn't cleaned out right. The first time, I don't know if I'm thinking that's what happened or somebody told me that. So, but you had to go back in and have basically the whole surgery over again.
Yeah. So they basically opened me up again. And when I left the hospital that time, my head was pretty much wrapped like a mummy.
Yeah.
Which for me was weird because now people are looking at me when I would go out, which I didn't go out much, but my mom definitely.
I made you go out.
Yeah. I mean, I remember. And I think that inevitably that was probably the best choice because I probably would have become more of like a hermit and because I was already nervous how I looked. I already knew I looked different and I didn't like it. And I think for me, going out to the malls and just walking through the malls in public again, I remember wearing a hoodie always. I just had a hoodie on just to cover. I mean, I knew I looked different. And people don't walk around with their heads wrapped like a mummy, but like there's a reason.
Yeah, but I kept saying, these people don't know you. You don't know them. It doesn't matter.
You'll never see them again.
That's right.
And I mean, yes, that's true. But I do appreciate that we went out and did things because once again, I think that was good for my mentality.
Right. I think so too.
Because after a traumatic head injury, I mean, there were just things like I had a hard time coming up with words. I had a hard time with some pieces of speech, and just getting back into a normal rhythm was necessary at that point.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a doctor. No, I know, but I think they tell you that you've got to exercise your brain because it was damaged. So it's got to kind of build those synapses or whatever that's called,
Yeah. It's true. So basically after all of that, I mean, it was just recovery. I mean, I had other surgeries because one, it was found that my eardrum was shatter, essentially. And then my doctor was so amazing. He also kind of closed up the scar on my head and moved some hair follicles for me. So I wasn't missing a huge bald spot on my head, which I got to tell you, I'm just so thankful for because I mean, yes, it's vanity, but I was so changed. I felt so changed. Like, I know you see me as me, but I know when I look in the mirror or see a picture of myself, I see somebody different than who I was, which it's the drastic change, but like also like God's done that too. Like it's a huge thing. So I think that's awesome. But what I was saying when Debbie came to visit is my face was still paralyzed. And that was about a month later for my birthday. And basically she made me laugh. You know, we were able to get together and do things like normal, like nothing had happened, even though it had. I mean, she was silly with me, and I just so appreciate that. And I think that's when my smile started coming back. My face started loosening up, or like because I was laughing and using the muscles, I started getting movement back.
And you were probably talking a lot.
Yeah.
So that also helped.
Yeah. So I'm just so thankful for that as well. But anything you want to add, Ma?
Well, I know we had said it was, how did it change me? And I don't know, other than the fact that I just knew I had to keep going in a forward direction, you know, and it was almost mechanical at first because I just didn't know what to do. This was a shock to my system basically as well.
Nobody prepares you for this.
There's no rule book that you can go to and say, well, if this happens, you do this. If this happens, you do that. You just have to do it on your own, pray, ask for guidance, ask for wisdom. You know, and just keep going in a forward direction, one step at a time, as they say, you know. And I mean, it's so true. Yeah. You know, and you get through it. Mm-hmm. And I'm so glad we're this far removed from it, because now it's not a dread. You know,
it's going to be 21 years.
I know. So it's not like an anniversary of like, oh, here we go again. Now it's almost a joy that we can look back and see all the Lord has done and how he has brought us so far, basically, or brought you basically health-wise, as well as in your spiritual relationship with the Lord. You know.
Yeah. Lots changed, but it's good.
It is good.
So this is a little bit of my October 18th story and my mom's October 18th story. That's what we refer to it. Obviously, it was much longer than that, a couple months longer, but it is a date that's written down for us for a lot of reasons. And I think for me, I think there's so much to it that of resilience.
Yes.
And a building of faith. Even though I was angry at times, I feel like that was the start of it. That was the start of where the Lord really just caught my attention for something deeper. And pain is sometimes good.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so.
And the scar is just a reminder that something that's healed. Something that was supposed to harm you is now healed.
That's right.
So, well, thanks for sitting with me.
Sure, it was fun. I think it was fun.
It was fun for me.
Yeah, it was good. And like I said before, I was going to say at the end, I'm very proud of you and love you very much.
Thank you. I love you too. And you're one of my favorite people. So I appreciate you. All right, everybody. Well, thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging out with us. Any questions, please feel free to send them in the chat. But for now, we are going to sign off. Thanks for joining us. Bye.
Bye.
If you're listening right now and walking through your own valley, I hope this reminds you, the valley doesn't last forever. There's always a mountaintop ahead. Vision isn't always clear. Live fully today. Ask questions. Be present. Remember, God knows the view beyond the valley. Thanks for listening to The Morning Pour. I hope you find peace and purpose in your own day after. And don't forget, tell the ones you love that you love them. Have a beautiful day. All right, friends, that wraps up my conversation with my mom. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. These kinds of talks remind me exactly why I started The Morning Pour. To share real conversations, a little wisdom, and a lot of heart. For now, I'll be bringing you interview-style episodes once a month while I build the foundation for this space. But soon, you'll be hearing a lot more from me. Quick pours, solo episodes, and those little sips of encouragement that help you start your day right. If you haven't already, follow along on Instagram at The Morning Pour. And of course, Kelly Sachs sells Jacks, so you don't miss what's coming next. And I'd love to hear from you. What kind of conversations or guests do you want to hear more of? You can drop a comment, send me a DM, or leave a review. to let me know what fills your cup. Thanks for spending your time with me today. Until next time, keep your cup full and your heart open.